Welcome back to For the Love of Men podcast. My name is Courtney Shand, and I'm hosting with my dear friend Brianna Mosier.
Hi.
The intention of the show is to bring together men and women to create healthy, polarized relationship dynamics by learning how to honor each other's natural, masculine, and feminine energetic cores. Before we dive in to this week's episode, which is going to be a really juicy one, I want to introduce you to my friend Bree. Bree, tell my friends who you are, what you do, this glorious reddish hair that you have.
Thank you. Recently went red. And
Love
I'm
it.
really liking it so far.
Such a compliment to your skin tone.
But that's not the whole story. My work in the world is helping really ambitious, driven women scale their businesses, grow their businesses through embracing their feminine energy, and have really healthy, thriving, polarized, intimate, pleasure-filled relationships. So my background is in psychology and sex, love, and intimacy, and then I've run my business, quite successfully, I would say, for the last 5 years. So that's the work that I do in the world. I help people make more money, more success, more impact, more orgasms, more love. It's hard work.
Someone has to do it, and you do it so well.
Someone has to do it. It actually is really hard work.
It is.
Which you get because your work is very similar.
Yes, I help women really bring feminine energy into their relationship with food and their body, and learning how to be with the experience of and bring back into harmony the emotions, and especially around things like emotional eating and kind of compulsive behaviors like that. They tend to need some body-centered care, and so I love calming the nervous system around food. I love helping women heal the generational patterns that we have learned in order to be in the world, so that you can show up as the most authentic, open-hearted, secure version of yourself and do the things that you're supposed to do in the world.
Love it.
Yeah.
What are we talking about today?
We
kind of in line with your work.
I mean, both of us. I feel like we're both going to have a really fun contribution to this conversation.
Different angles, too.
Yes. This is the overlap. It's like the Venn diagram, you know, we're like
Courtney and Bree, and there's this sweet spot where it's just...
where it's the show. That's the For the Love of Men podcast is the overlap. Today we're going to talk about body image. Body image for men and for women.
Mm-hmm.
I've worked with both men and women for years as a dietitian on this.
Hi, Callie.
Hey, Callie.
No, come on, Callie. Courtney's cat wants to say hi. We've just integrated her as one of the...
She's the mascot of...
Exactly.
One of the mascots.
Yes.
All the pets.
They're three. Continue.
I forget where I was going.
I guess we're in a like giggly, sidetracky mood today. I don't know what's happening.
We haven't recorded in a few weeks, so all of our energy is kind of like converging. Okay, we're going to talk about body image from the lens of bringing more pleasure, from the lens of feeling more secure and at home in your body. Both of us do that kind of work. Mine more on the health side of things, integrating the feminine energy into the health space, the science and the art. And you do that too. I guess that's kind of your domain as well. But anything you want to add before we dive in?
I'd like to add that Courtney is a dietitian and never talks about it.
Thank you.
So she is well educated in this space, and I love that we're going to have kind of different angles. With hers, you have so much, a wealth of knowledge in nutrition and how to treat your body well. And my angle is probably more of the fitness related and sex, love, and intimacy side of things. But I do think this is going to be pretty magical. Now that I'm like, oh wait, yes,
we've got this. Okay, so let's dive in. Do you want to talk about women first, or do we want to bring men on the scene?
I think let's bring men in right away.
Let's do it.
Name it.
Let's do it. I would venture to say, as a professional in this field, and I work with hundreds of people at this point, I've kind of scaled my practice or niched it a little bit more, but before that I was working with thousands of men and women, so that's where my data points are coming from. But I would venture to say that men have just as much difficulty in finding that body image for them. They go about it from that more masculine perspective, but I find that for men it's hard for them to think of caring for their body. They think of managing their body and molding it, and they have a lot of discipline that they bring to it. But to have a healthy relationship with their body, I think that men equally struggle with this. Men, correct me if I'm wrong, but just from my conversations with what men have shared with me through the years, I think that it is worth having a conversation about.
Totally. And we were saying before the show, there's so much less of a permission slip for men to even name it or talk about it, because it is so vulnerable to, still the idea of, and Courtney and I do a lot of work to combat this, but the idea of masculinity is like having your chest puffed out and being this tough person who never struggles and is never vulnerable. And so in a lot of ways that almost pigeonholes men into making it look like they have it all together all the time. I'm not saying that women don't have that same fear, because we know women do. But when it comes to body image, there's been a lot of social movement for women to be able to talk about it. And I know that's really helped heal me. And there's not even now, I can't even think of one ad, media campaign, movement toward men's positive body image. Can you think of any? I can think of about 10 for women.
It's definitely a smaller amount. I'd have to really think about it. There's not a lot of body inclusion in the men's space.
Nope.
Yeah, that's a great point.
There's really not. So there's just, I feel like my interpretation is a lot of men don't know how to enter the conversation, or if it's safe to and okay.
Mm-hmm. And this will play out, especially when you're dating. If I know in the men's space, what I hear is that they are working on their fitness as a form of discipline and masculine energy and like regulating themselves. And this will play out in how you relate to your partner, especially as things become more intimate physically, because you're exposing more vulnerability as you move towards more partnership or more intimacy in your relationship. You're going to be confronted with the ways that you feel about the parts of you that are soft, or the parts of you that are not doing what you should be doing, or the parts of you that aren't as disciplined or don't want to be as disciplined as the standard is. If there's any challenge point in that for you, it's going to show up in intimate partnership, in my opinion.
It's so true. Even beyond, if we look beyond body image and look at people's genitals and how they relate to their genitals, there's a whole nother door to open there, men and women. And that might be one where there's more focal point on men talking about, how they feel about their genitals and the size and the performance and all these things. And for women, I think there's a softer, quieter underbelly where, because our genitals are on the inside, it's not as normalized to talk about, in my experience, in circles of women. And so lots of women have insecurities about what they look like, taste like, smell like, but it's so intensely vulnerable to bring up that even in my practice, where I say to people, hey, I'm formally trained in sex, love, and intimacy, like you see me talk about it all the time, what's going on? It's kind of like this, am I allowed to name that I'm insecure about this part of my body? Because I know I could talk about my chest, and I know I could talk about my body, but can I talk about, is that okay? So it's more of a quiet struggle for women in that sense, and for men too, but it's less open, I think, because of anatomically how we're different.
Yeah, interesting. That's such a great point. So for men, I think what I have heard from men is that they will notice this as things become more physically intimate. They will be kind of confronted with these ways that they've been seeing themselves. And it's the same, I would say, as what I work on with women, is to see yourself clearly. The way that your partner sees you is, to me, the doorway to increasing your sense of security in that relationship. You're going to feel more confident if you feel like you have a clear image of yourself through the eyes of love, so that you are able to see yourself with some esteem in that, regardless of how your body is presenting. We were talking before we got started that I would say every body is different, and it's about finding what your particular body needs. And at this stage, what you were mentioning is bodies change. What your body needs to feel its best and for you to feel good in it is the goal. And that will change at different stages of life, based on what's happening around you, based on your hormonal profile, kind of how your body's been responding and supporting you thus far. All of those things have an impact on our experience of what it feels like to be in our body.
Such a good point. I think people too come up with this body story from a very young age. Would you say it's true for you too? Like I'll just say in my experience, it felt like everyone was sizing each other up. For, like elementary school, middle school, when your body starts changing, you start realizing the space you take up or don't take up in the room, what your body looks like compared to your friends, and at what stage puberty progresses. It sounds like these are old stories because they are, but they live in your body unless you look at them. And you have full-grown adults who still think of themselves as the tall one, the big one, the little one, the small-chested one, the one that was too tiny that couldn't make the football team. Like, they still live in that story.
Moment of silence for Bree's genius.
Thank you.
I mean, come on. Yes, they are going to be often our earliest woundings around how we see ourselves. Has to do with our body, because that's the physical representation of how people perceive us that don't know us often, and yet we don't have the boundaries or the emotional, front part of our brain online to say, is that true? No, that sounds more like it's about you. And shield that.
Yeah, and even if it was true, the reframe for me has been seeing the uniqueness in it. Like, what's the issue with being the tall one? I say as a 5'9" woman. You know what I mean? Like, why is that actually a bad thing? When did I start telling myself that was a bad thing? Because now in my adult life, I've had a lot of counter experience where people are always telling me how they wish they were taller, and I've dated people who loved tall women, and it was all these like corrective experiences where my brain was going, what? I've always been insecure about this. This is what? So whose lens are you looking at it from, really? And are you millennial technically?
Yeah.
Or what's the next one? Gen Z or Gen X?
Gen Z.
Gen Z. I think I'm like on the cusp.
Yeah.
But you're a millennial.
For sure. Yeah. I am a solid millennial.
So
you keep me up to date.
I keep you young. She's very young. Anyway, okay, that's enough oversharing about age. For me, I grew up watching like America's Next Top Model. You remember that?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And there would be and 17 magazine would have these like, get abs in 6 weeks. You remember those?
Oh yeah.
That was the programming I remember growing up with. And I know a large majority of our audience is in kind of the same age range as we are. So I think people will get this. And then you hold those stories. You remember, and I know she's since come out and apologized about this, Tyra Banks, but making those comments about women's bodies, losing weight or being super thin. And it stays with you when you're that young and malleable and impressionable, and then you don't let it leave. And now as an adult, we have all these beautiful media campaigns around size inclusivity and embracing your body. And even that has been a huge shift for me, and helpful that the media did that, because it's so starkly different, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's amazing to me how these start early, and in my practice specifically, because I do a lot of deep work on where these stories start, and I find that this is often inherited as well to some degree. The way that mom is looking, talking, speaking about her body becomes the narrative. The way that dad is looking at, speaking about, and talking about his body and mom's body and other people's bodies becomes the set point, the expectation that you grew up with. And depending on these inherited things like trauma and how your body processes that trauma, and if that's your life's path to heal and pass that back, it's going to be hard work to stand in that gap and say, hey, actually, this is the new story that we're going to tell. And if you were thinking about the stories that your parents narrated the world with around your body and other people's bodies, you might notice some similarities there about how you start to think about and set expectations for yourself as normal.
Great point. I think it would be super helpful, because I know people listen and they go, well, what do I do with this information now? We do a lot of like doorway opening conversations to normalize. And to be frank, we do that to protect ourselves from going into a coaching space, right? Because we value our work and we value our clients who invest in our work privately. And so that means there has to be some level of discernment on what you share for free, out of respect for people who invest to work with you, and also out of respect for your own intellectual property and geniusness. But it might be helpful if you're listening to do exactly what Courtney said, is kind of look at what stories did I hear from mom and what stories did I hear from dad about body, and maybe even food, exercise, all those things, sex, but that's a whole different We'll get into it. We've got episodes planned. Yeah. So maybe just stick to body image.
Yeah.
And look at those and kind of check off, which ones am I believing about myself if I'm honest? We tend to either side that way and start believing those things or rebel against it. It's going to be one or the other. So it would behoove you to think about, how did I interpret this and what are the stories I continue to tell myself? Do they feel empowering? Is really the biggest question. Does this feel good to believe about myself? The moment that you decide no, it doesn't, you've done the bulk of the work. And there's this like hard to describe quality where the universe steps in and starts helping you shift it. You know, like you start to see different social medias or people compliment your body in different ways, or you see your body in a different way. The self-awareness alone is where the shifting starts happening.
Agreed.
You know, it's an abstract concept to describe, but if you felt it, then you're like, yes, I get that.
Yep. The way I structure my work is like awareness always comes first, because without it, we build the wrong boundaries and structures to support us, and we can't embody the correct truth if we are building the wrong boundaries. We're letting the wrong things through still. So awareness has to be, it is the bulk of the work. And it seems like the things that you don't want to do, we resist that awareness for lots of reasons. But yeah, I love that. Great point. So taking inventory for yourself is trust that is enough to get the ball rolling. And then it is like things will just start making more sense. They will start coming through differently. And you can kind of start to trust yourself again in that way.
Certainly.
So good.
Love it. Do you have any, I don't want to put you on the spot, so if you don't have one right away, you can pass the ball back to me. Okay. I will happily share.
Okay.
But I'm more curious about my friend.
Okay.
I already know my own stories. Do you have any particular body image stories where you had an aha or something shifted, or you noticed like, ooh, I've been believing that and I don't want to anymore? Can we make it real for them?
Yes. So I actually don't talk about my story very often when it comes to how I got into the relationship with food piece, but when I was younger and in high school, being the tall one already made me stand out. And so I would, kind of like slouch or try to shrink a little bit, thinking that was the right way to go. And that healing, that was alone amazing. But I would say too, in terms of how I looked at and treated my body, I had this ideal of what that needed to look like. And it wasn't until I'm trying to think when that started to shift, but really starting to see that all of the things that I was hoping would go away, this, like, ooh, the pooch, the soft part, the thighs, the arms that are not as toned, when I started dating and letting actual feedback in, I started to notice that men didn't actually notice any of those things that I was hyper aware of. And if anything, allowing them to be on the journey with me was actually really healing. That every time someone would rub my arm and I would kind of like pull away, and to let that in, to let them just caress my arm, or to notice what my legs looked like, and not feel the embarrassment. Actually, that's what I had to do, is to feel the embarrassment and the shame in his presence, and just his presence alone, not going anywhere, letting me experience that was enough to start to shift that and allow that to dissolve, so that it wasn't, again, kind of like what you were saying, like, why was I embarrassed of this? This is just how my body is.
Love it.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I like how you emphasize the somatic piece. Instead of like pushing down the shame or trying to change it, or I shouldn't feel this way, I'm just going to push it out of my brain, which is what I think a lot of us do when we're making a good intentioned effort to change how we feel about our bodies.
Yes.
We kind of try to just go, I won't think that anymore.
Yeah.
And Court and I are both somatic practitioners, so if you were to work with us, we would challenge you to be with that feeling for 1 second longer before you push it away, until you can really let it alchemize, because that's when it moves. I'm trying not to let myself go in the coaching space.
I know, I'm
but
really
it's very hard. It's very hard to do. So that's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, which should be a good indicator. These are things that we're really passionate about, and I didn't anticipate it being so difficult to not coach people in this episode. But if you want more of this, you will be in good hands either way you go. I know you've mentioned some experiences. I don't know if you want to share any, since you asked the question. Sure. I'll ask it back.
Thank you. So conscientious. Like when people ask, hey, do you want to go get coffee? I do, is what they mean. I'd like to go get coffee. Yeah. Do you want some?
Do you also want
coffee? I sincerely meant it, though. I was curious what your experience was like. But yeah, I think, so when I first started my business, I was fitness coaching because I had just been competing in the bikini bodybuilding realm. And that was several years ago, 6 years ago, maybe 2018, 5 years ago-ish. And that space was very different then than it was now. It was very trendy, for lack of a better word. There wasn't a lot of education in it, but there was a big, like, at least from my interpretation, coolness to it. And I was such a masculinized, disciplined, star student that is the realm I took. And I don't regret it. It was a beautiful experience for 3-4 years, but the honey of the entire thing, beyond understanding how to eat for a body that I love and how to lift and take care of my body well and all these things, was that I saw my body change into truly every shape that she could take. Because when you're bodybuilding, you know, the journey briefly, generally, depending on who you work with as a coach, is that you lean out and get as lean as you can. So at one point I was 8% body fat, which is very low for a woman.
Wow.
And then you reverse diet, and then you bulk up to try to gain muscle, and then you cut down again, and then you reverse diet to recover your metabolism, and then you bulk up. Sidebar, there was no education on women's hormones when this was happening.
Yeah, I'm like, oh boy.
Cringe, right? Man. And now that I know what I know with feminine energy and how to honor, I'm like, why did I not have a coach who was helping me manage my hormone and how my body would change as a woman? I mean, even on periods, nope, still gotta lift 5 days a week. I would never now.
Right.
Okay, I digress. The point is, I saw my body at the very thinnest, and I got on stage and I won trophies for it, and it did really well. And I'm proud of myself for that. And then I would reverse diet, and that was really fun. And the bulk would be really hard. It would be hard to go from seeing all these striations and definition in all your muscles and having abs all the time to then a normal amount of healthy body fat felt abnormal to me, because I was used to that shape that I would only truly have for the few hours I was on stage. If you're familiar with bodybuilding, your peak week before is a whole uncomplicated process. And then you eat these carbs and train and puff things up before you walk out on stage and display everything. Later that night, you usually eat your face off, not best practice, but that's what most people do. Wake up the next morning, you don't even look like that. It's a very short period.
Wow.
But it's easy for your brain to attach to, this is how I'm supposed to look. And then you give up your whole life to change your body. It's a sport. I respect it. I'm not judging it, but it did deeply change what I thought about my body. And when I let my whole life revolve around food and my body and working out, it literally took my whole life. And so I really was able to see, wow, this is the best part, the honey, is this is what it takes for me to look in this ideal manner that I at the time thought was ideal. I don't anymore. It takes my entire life. Like every part of me, weighing and tracking all of my food, never going out to eat, not being able to like go to dinner with my partner at the time. Oh, it's just not worth it. It's truly finally landed in my body. Like, this is just not worth it. I don't even want this if this is what it takes.
Wow.
And I could really let it go. So when I finally left that world, and the other honey of that was, even at the leanest shape, then I'd be looking at my booty like, oh, I wish it was bigger. I wish my delts were bigger. And then when I would bulk, I'd be like, oh, I wish I had abs. I know my booty looks better now, but I wish I had abs. And it was a constant never feeling good enough. And that's part of when it sank in my body. Like, it does not matter what your body looks like. It matters how you feel about your body, always. Because now I'm the heaviest I've ever been, and I feel amazing. Amazing. I love my body, but I've done so much work to heal all that BS from the media, society, and also just like kind of things that I made up. And also other women. I would say usually it was women, for me, were more of the offenders, other women, than it was men. Didn't really feel criticized by a lot of men about my body. It was a lot of girl on girl stuff. Don't take that out of context. A lot of influence of what it means to be a beautiful woman by other women.
Yeah.
Whether it was like said or maybe I made it up, I don't know.
We feel it. I think we can
perceive.
We can perceive it, and it will trigger other women. And it will trigger, and this is, I think, where it gets reinforced generationally, is the things that other women don't feel great about in their body get triggered when you're displaying that, as is the case in any experience. Will trigger other people, and then that reinforces, like, oh, don't do that. And we integrate that instead of that's a them thing. Let them deal with that, and keep moving forward with confidence and connection to your body.
So good.
I love that you shared that it is such a double-edged sword. It's kind of like the triangle, the pick two. You know, there's so many iterations of this, of like, you know, you can only pick two out of the three. Which do you want? You're always kind of striving for that balance in our mind. And yet you can really only pick two at a time. Cruelty.
I had a friend say it to me as, instead of balancing her life, she wants to harmonize it.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a great reframe.
Yes. Yeah, balance is
impossible.
Overrated. Yeah, it's we're striving in the wrong direction when it comes to balance. Anything else that you have found very healing? Any good reframes?
I think what you said deserves to be harped on a little bit more. Seeing your body through the eyes of your partner.
One of my favorite tools.
Given that they're a healthy, empowered partner. And if your partner does not make you feel good about your body, I would reevaluate your relationship with that partner immediately.
Yes.
Your partner should be the one who's fanning your flames in every area of your... Don't forget that they love you.
Yeah.
I know this seems basic, but people who've been through trauma and abuse in relationship, it's like, it can be like a whoa moment. Your partner is the person, hopefully, ideally, who cherishes every part of you, who can truly say, I love every fiber of your being. I love everything about you, even your wounded parts. That's the bar. Your partner should look at your body and not go, well, you'd look better if you lost a little weight there. What's going to happen when you're old and gray? Your body's going to change, and so is theirs. Man or woman, because I know women do this to men too. I'm not incriminating any gender. Your partner should fan your flames and make you feel better and about your body and love your body more. And what I have found to be true is the more work that you do on loving your body and feeling good in it, you will attract in partners who mirror that. I see this really prominently with women who I help fall in love with their vulva, their smell, their taste, the way everything looks, their labia, all of it. When they start to love that part of themselves, they attract in partners who love that part of themselves even more, and it stretches them. And the same thing is true in the body image realm. When they start loving their body more, then you don't even have to love it full, like 10% more. You'll get someone who loves it 30% more than you. That's true. They'll amplify it, and it'll feel like, can I receive all this? Whoa, can I feel this good about my body?
Yeah. Am I allowed to?
Yeah. Because you've grown up, we've all grown up, regardless of gender, in a world that tries to make you chase worthiness in your body.
Yeah, this is, I mean, $1 trillion industry. There is good reason that you feel bad about your body.
That's important.
Like, this is not...
Think about it. Who makes money?
Who benefits from you feeling horrible about yourself and about your body? This is different than health. And I know this is kind of like a controversial topic sometimes, but it's different than about being healthy. There is a version of health for your body that's going to be healthiest for you. there's a version of my body that's healthiest for me. And I think there's a lot of gray area in striving for health, or this is my experience with people, helping them in their health journey. There's a difference between striving for being the healthiest version your body can be and looking and measuring a certain way. Measurements even being the biological measurements, our blood, our hormones, all of the things. There's goals for those things in the health industry, and that's a little bit different than feeling bad about yourself. What you want is to feel empowered in taking care of your body, because this is the vessel that you get to ride around in until you leave. And why would we not want to have a good experience in that? And to find harmony with that is going to amplify all of the other areas of your life. The way that you relate to your partner, the way that you show up in the world, the way that you use the gifts that you have and have the energy to see those things through. There's lots of ways that this is, that you can take lots of power back, is what I'm trying to say.
Ugh, so good.
Yeah.
I love that you brought in the health context too, because it's totally different. You know,
yeah,
the way you treat your body for vanity or the image is different than health. Not that they're have to be separate, but
yeah, they do tend to be parallel tracks. They seem like they're going in the same direction, and they're very much different. My partner used to work in the fitness space too, and as we've been talking about health and kind of what we want that to look like, and some adjustments that we're both focusing on, it's been really interesting, the stories that have come up just from what you were saying of either not full information or not integrated information that happens and gets circulated in, and maybe they get circulated in the gym space by people who are wanting to manipulate their bodies to appear a certain way. There's lots of research out there that you can find one nugget of truth and then expand it, and that's what people will hear and take to heart. And so unwinding a lot of those so that you can integrate that information and have a really integrated view of what that's going to do to your body and feel educated and empowered by it, that's awesome. Full send. But check where people are coming from when they're giving you information like that, and what your motivation is for consuming it. I will leave that one there.
100%. We could go on and on about this, really.
Yeah.
With both of our backgrounds, you know?
Yeah.
And eating to feel alive inside your body is sometimes, as Courtney's saying, different than eating for vanity purposes. Like, I know when I was doing fitness competitions, I wasn't eating for vitality and energy. I remember pacing out my meals by the minute because the calories would get so low. There's like a couple distinct moments where I was like, I'm gonna die. And it's a sport. Don't forget too, when people who are in that community, think of it as a sport, that it's like they're athletes, and so they're willing to be in that grittiness. But is it healthy? Is it supportive for your lifestyle? That's an individual question that only you know. I will say, I remember, just recently, I think I told you this story already, when my partner and I were sitting in bed doing something and my legs were crossed under me and I had shorts on. And for those of you who have, like, I don't want to say thicker body types, but I'm not a petite person. I'm just not. I'm just not. I've trained in the gym. I've grown my lower body. I'm 5'9". Like, I'm just not. And I love that about myself now. But I was sitting there, and when you sit with your legs underneath you, I know the women here know, your cellulite kind of like crinkles in if you have it. And for my whole life, this has been an insecurity. By the way, even when I was 8% body fat, I still had cellulite, which was also healing to know.
Wow,
right? Like, this isn't a matter of losing weight. This is just how bodies are.
It's not a moral failure.
Genetically, you're literally doing everything you can bring, and it's still there. So how about we let ourselves off the hook on this one?
Wow.
You know?
Wow.
But I was sitting there, and my cellulite, like bumped up or whatever, and he reaches over and grabs it, and he was like, I love seeing these ripples in your skin. And I was like, what? It was one of those moments where my brain was like, what's happening?
Am I allowed to say
He was
this?
like, I love it. It just makes me think about my baby so thick. And you look so sexy. And I was like, what in the is happening? my child parts are healing, my adult parts are healing. And I was like, do you know that I've spent my whole life hating my cellulite and trying to cover it and wear jean shorts that are, well, never, first of all, I don't like wearing jean shorts. They're uncomfortable for me because they don't fit my body type. But Abercrombie came out with some Curve Well. This is not a promotion, but they are pretty good, but they're not great. Anyway, trying to get the sides of the shorts to be like big enough so the cellulite didn't show. And it totally corrected in that moment.
Wow.
And that's what he always says to me. You can get as thick as you want. You know, like, you look amazing right now. I love your body right now. But if you want to gain weight, you totally can. And for me, this is medicine because I was in the population of people who always tried to be smaller. Yep. That was my programming. I also acknowledge that there are people who are super petite and want to be thicker and have spent their whole lives trying to gain weight and be more voluptuous or more whatever words feel authentic to them. So that might not be medicine for you, but it's still true for a lot of people, right? And we can hold space for both realities, where whether you're gaining or losing, whatever ideal you're striving toward, the heart of this story is, I got to let go of that unworthiness piece. Wow. Because of seeing how the person who loves me the most sees my body. Period.
Wow.
That's it.
Esteem.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's, I think, where the marriage of the two is so important. And I know you bring it into your work, but we can manipulate ourselves however we want. If the emotions are not actually being dealt with, we're not going to get the experience that we want. You can be Twiggy and still be very unhappy, Twiggy the model. Like, you can be very thin and still be unhappy. You can also have more flesh and feel confident. And I've met the whole spectrum. And there's health goals for this side, there's health goals for this side that's going to sustain your body, this vessel that you are in. So I love that. Healing the things that cause you to strive to change. Once you can start to accept the body that you're in,
it changes a lot easier also.
I agree. Yeah, that's the hardest part, is you accepting the version of the body that's in front of you. And I always remind my clients, as they're actively wanting to make changes, that the changes don't happen until you're able to say, you know, I accept that my stomach is softer than I want, and I'm going to choose to love it. And loving it is going to look like maybe giving myself permission to enjoy food, as well as choose healthy options that are supportive of better health. And loving it is also going to look like maybe paying more attention to it during the day and really getting curious about activating different muscles and learning about my abdomen and abdominal muscles. And it's also going to look like giving my belly breaths space so my digestive organs have room to do their job, and I'm willing to be triggered by what that means of letting my stomach not be sucked in. All of those things are loving your body, and until you can love this part of you, it's not going to change. It's defended for a reason, and the way to allow it to change is to start loving it, and that requires you to be with the triggers. I haven't found a way around that.
Brilliant. And the same thing's true for men, really. I know we're giving a lot of women's body types, but there are men who are very thin and super attractive, and there are men who are very thick and super attractive. There are short men who are really attractive. I've dated men shorter than me at 5'9". I know you have as well.
Yep, that was a healing
experience. It didn't matter.
Too.
Yes, and to be honest with you, sidebar on this, the reason I only dated taller men prior was because I was insecure about my height. Not because there was anything wrong with a man being shorter. I was insecure about being too tall. It had nothing to do with the men. Yep. So I hope maybe some mannies hear that, but start looking. It's so helpful to open up your perspective and look at a variety of different body types and seeing them as beautiful and amazing, and changing your own self-talk. Sometimes we're so indoctrinated into this thinking that in our heads you can be like correcting people's body almost. When you're really insecure about your body, then you kind of project it onto other people. start appreciating every body type that you see, man or woman, and seeing what's attractive in them. That will be healing for you. You will radiate differently also. People will receive you differently and your body differently when you start celebrating her thighs or his height, or I don't know, all the multitude of beautiful things about people. Start seeing it as like, I don't know, this beautiful realm of diversity of bodies, instead of assuming that everyone's striving toward an ideal. And maybe this is just the fitness part of my brain, but maybe other people have that same part who feel like they're going to strive toward it. So men and women, I think that could be really healing. I know a lot of women who are super attracted to the dad bods. I know a lot of women who are attracted to really thin men, athletic men, non-athletic men. Like, it just doesn't matter. The least interesting thing about you is your body. Have you heard that phrase before?
I love when you say that.
When someone speaks at your funeral, they're not going to be like, she had a really nice butt.
Yeah, her six-pack was...
I do hope someone says that at my funeral.
I'll make sure that's said.
Courtney will get up there and be like, Brie, a really nice butt. But sincerely, like, that's not what people are thinking about. They're thinking about your wit, your humor, your kindness, your generosity, your presence, you know, how you impact them. They're not thinking about his six-pack was everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are. They're not the people you want to surround yourself with.
Also, great point. And I love what you were saying about the fitness space too, when you said, what is it worth? Like, I remember reading something a few years ago about men's body image issues, and it was saying that, like, the dad bod is the new joke, and yet to maintain the level of fitness that is required, fitness is different. I'm going to say fitness is different, general fitness, than vanity shape fitness. So I want to be very clear, those are very different. You do deserve to be in a healthy body. Your family wants you to be healthy so that you can participate as much as possible. That's very different. The vanity side of things, in order to maintain that type of body, it's going to be tough when you have kids, and when you're supporting a partner, and when you're really giving it your all in your career, man or woman. That's going to be a really high standard to achieve. It's going to create a lot of anxiety, in my experience, just in working with people. It's going to create a lot of health anxiety, and that's not the goal either. So being aware of the fact that your body's going to change at different points in your life based on what's available to you, time-wise, self-care routine-wise, getting smarter at what you're actually needing in order to support overall holistic health at different stages of your life is going to, in my opinion, change the trajectory of how your body does look and feel. And yet, knowing that it's going to change, I love that you said that earlier, knowing that it's going to change is the expectation. Let that be the expectation and respond accordingly.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So good. You're making me think about, when you're saying, like, there's health goals and there's vanity goals, right? The same principle applies with sex and pleasure. How people think the vanity goal will bring them better sex. And I'm telling you right now, what your body looks like has nothing to do with how good the sex is or how much that person enjoys it. I promise you, you having a certain size of body, not the factor that you think it is in pleasurable sex. It's not. I promise you, it's studied. I've invested so much money to learn this, and time and energy. And I have a whole program called the Pleasure Program built for women, but I want to give you this piece because it's really helpful. Genius. What makes great sex is the feelings that you get from it, and you have to learn yourself, and I take you through this in a whole module inside for women listening who want to do this inside the Pleasure Program, where you learn what feelings you're actually craving. That's what makes sex amazing. If one of your core desire feelings, and again, we'll boil this down, is to feel irresistible, your partner making you feel that way will be the thing that checks the box in your head as this was amazing sex. It won't be that you had an orgasm, it won't be their body, and it won't be your body. It'll be you feeling like you're irresistible. Or for men, if it's, you want to feel really powerful, it does not matter what their body looks like or what I realize I'm giving very gendered examples because some men do also want to feel submissive and some women want to feel powerful in the bedroom, which can be fun. You can want both. But if you want to feel really powerful, it has nothing to do with her body or yours. It's the feeling you get when you're in it. And also the act doesn't matter either. Ooh. It's truly about what brings the feeling. I know it sounds a little complex, but when I learned this, when I was in my coursework, my mind was blown. A lot of women and a lot of men think, if my body looks this way, then I'll be a sex god. You will not. Courtney and I will tell you, in our experiences, variety of body shapes and sizes, what made sex amazing with the men we slept with? Not their body. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Attentiveness. Attunement.
Yep.
The feelings you want to feel.
Yep.
Pleasure. Nothing to do with your body. And I've heard from a lot of men,
we're not energetic.
Yes.
The energy quality.
Thinking about those little things that you're thinking. I'm not thinking about your cellulite when I'm inside you at all. Like, what? Unless it's a turn on, They're not criticizing your body. They're lost in the moment with you. Mm. If they are criticizing your body, again, like, no. Go somewhere else with your sacred pleasure.
Right. There is another way of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just invite you into another way of doing it. And yeah.
Don't sleep with people who make you feel bad about your body. It's not going to work out the way you think it is.
Don't make yourself vulnerable to people who make you feel bad about your body. That's not the space to be vulnerable with someone.
It's usually a wounded part that's wanting validation from someone who you think you couldn't have. And usually those are child parts or high school parts, if we're honest. So
yeah,
that's a whole nother can of worms.
Yeah.
But anyway, what makes sex amazing is not what your body looks like. But I do find that is, I was telling Courtney before, one of like the top 3 reasons that women leave their body and go into their head is what they think they look like, when I promise you the person across from you is not focused on that. They're thinking, goddess queen, she is amazing, I love to be with her, this is amazing, we could try this, we could do that, this feels so good. That's what they're thinking.
Yep. And if that's never been a consideration for you, try that on for size. On a date or with your intimate partner in the intimate space that you're creating. Try that on for size, that he is, just assume that he's like, wow, this goddess queen in front of me. And tell me your vibe won't shift.
And also that's what she's thinking too.
And that's what she's thinking. Yeah. If you were to assume that, that is going to embody confidence. And then she will start thinking that, or he will start thinking that.
Mm-hmm. I think for men it could be a slightly different flavor too.
Probably.
For women, I find that we really have to bolster them into believing in their worthiness and feeling good enough. And I wonder what the appropriate counter would be for men, because I do think it's a slightly different flavor than him sitting there like, she's lucky to be with me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm sure the wounding's not quite as deep for men in that particular.
Yeah, but sitting with confidence like this woman has chosen to be on this date with me. She's interested in me. She's attracted to me. She wants to be here. That assumption, I think, is going to calm your system and also let you lead with your best self.
Yeah.
Your most secure self.
Yep. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Let it unfold from there.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. Anything else?
Good. Man, we covered it.
I mean, I think we covered a good amount of content. And if this is something that is piquing your interest, feel free. We are going to put the links in the show notes to how to work with us more in depth. Mm-hmm. We both go deep into this from a somatic lens, healing deep layers of wounding so that those parts of you can feel confident in expressing. I think that's safe to say about your work too.
Certainly.
Across the board.
Yes.
So feel free. We will put those links in the show notes. And she mentioned the pleasure program. What is it called now?
Either one. Pleasure program is what I call it.
Genius. Her work on display. It is gold. If that's something that is resonating with you, go get it. If this is something that you're wanting some support with in terms of body image in general, emotional eating, healing your hormones, understanding how your body works and what it needs to feel its best, find my program Nourished. We go deep into all of those things, as well as the generational influences that can be released so that you're free to show up as the healthiest version of yourself. Anything else you want to say about your pleasure program? I didn't mean to take the...
No, you didn't.
Okay.
It was great. It's perfect for, we talk about body image and all the things, as I've mentioned in this before. So it is self-study. So you can get in and work your way through it as much as your system is ready for it, and take breaks. But you will learn your vulva, learn your pleasure, become more uninhibited. It's a beautiful gift to give to yourself, this education.
Yeah. Anything to be more in your body, I think, is such a gift.
And have more pleasure.
Yeah.
Our bodies are wired for pleasure, and everything in society tries to push us away from it. Don't do that.
Yeah. I would say that's true in food too. Very triggering for people in how to enjoy pleasurable things when it comes to taste. Not just sexuality, but in all areas of your life. The more pleasure that you can experience, this is what I have learned, the more calm your nervous system is, the more pleasure you're able to experience just in having a yummy seltzer or a yummy cup of coffee, or, you know, it can be simple things. So there's a whole spectrum to play with once you are able to hold that calmness in your nervous system.
Yeah, pleasure is a whole topic, sexualized and also platonic, you know. Anyway, we'll get into it because we have a whole Q3 coming up for you about pleasure and sex and intimacy. So
amazing. If you want more support from us, we also have Masterclasses available. You can use the code PARTNERS for a discount. That link will be in the bio as well. Anything else?
That's it.
All right.
Oh, follow us on TikTok. And we are going to come out with our own Instagram as well, at fortheloveofmenpodcast. Stay tuned for that. If it's not up, well, it should be up by the time you see this.
Yeah, and YouTube.
Yes, YouTube.
Like and subscribe. That helps us